It's very original. You're giving like every possibility to describe this poem here, and it's just a very interesting way of giving several ways of saying the same thing, I suppose. Life is suffering, and yet, or unless, hence, since, once, provided so in order that, whether, if, only if, as if, even if, although, before, well, after, until, by the time, as long, much, soon as, how, when, wherever, more, less than, in case, lest, because we are surviving.
I think life is suffering in general. I think life is pain in general.
I think life is suffering.
It's very open, and I think the meaning is defined by me, who reads it. We are defined by how much we are willing to suffer, and our success is also defined by it, be it personal development or professional success. It's about how much you allow yourself to suffer in order to be better the next day.
I don't think life is suffering, because life is enjoyable.
You need to suffer to enjoy.
The poem reminds me on the COVID time.
It reminds me of everyone's day-to-day life, you know. Living an actual life is more than just trying to get by on the next day. It's actually putting meaning into what we want to do every day.
I've been going through some hard things lately, and then I resonate with this, but then at the same time I don't want to, or like I don't want to only see that suffering, but there's beauty in suffering as well, so I also don't think it's only negative.
It's a relative feeling of suffering. Suffering is relative, it's different from one individual to another. Life is suffering, hence we are surviving.
Hence, I think part of life is suffering, but I don't think life is only suffering. But I do see the connection with surviving, and if it would be suffering, then we would be surviving, or hence we would be surviving. But
Life is suffering and we are surviving, but then I also like life is suffering yet we are surviving.
Life is suffering, even if we are surviving.
Life is suffering unless we are surviving.
Life is suffering wherever we are surviving.
Life is suffering only if we are surviving.
Life is suffering and we are surviving.
Life is suffering because we are surviving.
Oh,
that's my favorite one.
That's nice. Smart structure, because there is a start, there is an end, and that's quite clear. And your journey and your path can be different, right? But at the end, we start from the same point and we end to the same point as well.
So it forces you to think about what it is and how you should word it.
This poem has 2 sentences, but in between it has so many possibilities.
the way that it was formulated as kind of that you can fill it in for yourself.
So it's only a one sentence, and then whichever way someone feels about life is the way they'll connect. Like they'll choose the connection between the sentence. So for example, I said and yet, but other people will choose different things.
Life is suffering, and yet, or unless, hence, since, once, provided, so, in order that, whether, if, only if, as if, even if, although, before, while, after, until, by the time, as long, much, soon as, how, when, wherever, more, less than, in case, lest, because we are surviving.
I think your personality is optimistic, just because there are so many possibilities and so many options. You leave room for interpretation.
Passionate, intense or deep, melancholic or nostalgic maybe. Yeah, and like existential.
I'd say very thoughtful, introspective, and maybe a tad melancholic.
Deep, probably social, political, conscious.
You're a person who likes to travel and also to discover live beings.
Thoughtful and contemplating. You think about life in general a lot. You try to make sense.
4 faces on each corner, and it's like obviously it's very dark and sad. Obviously, we're describing suffering.
I see mirrored faces in there, so I believe it is also very linked to this poem. To this poem, I would say. To me, we are mirroring ourselves a lot, and I think we are mirroring other people, what we see, what we experience, and I think this shows it to me as well.
4 shapes of a portrait in 4 corners. Which are kind of like intertwining with each other, intimate in a way, and it's very organic. And I think your poem is also very organic.
This person seems to be looking in all the 4 corners just to find some solutions to live.
Very beautiful and very mysterious.
They look a bit sad because they are surviving, but there is a lot of faces, so it's also about the humanity.
It also feels a bit passive, because also the poem "Life is suffering because we are surviving" doesn't feel. It feels like life is just passing by without any active reactions. Their soul. It looks very deep and thoughtful. Eyes are closed, and life is just passing by.